Okay, a very good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so thank you for joining us at session 2, IT-based solution for education of the International Conference for Sustainability Education 2021. This session is being organized by WWF India, Sashakt Bharat, Foundation for Environmental Education, and National Institute of Open Schooling. Let me begin with a brief introduction to the organizations. To begin with, I am Neha Raghav from the Environment Education Division of WWF India. So about WWF India, Worldwide Fund for Nature was founded in the year 1969. It has been working towards finding science-based solutions and sustainable solutions to address challenges at the interface of development and conservation. Our work spans across thematic areas that include the conservation of key wildlife species, their habitats, climate change adaptation, and inspiring children and youth to take positive action for environment. Of course, environment education is one of the first division that we started out with, and it has always been an integral part of the organization's vision and mission. Moving on to Sashakt Bharat. Sashakt Bharat is an initiative towards the development of a pan-India platform for young people. This youth environmental leadership program has been developed to ensure that participants learn about the nuances of environmental sustainability. I welcome Ms. Shreya Rai, founder Sashakt Bharat and Nat Geo Young Explorer for the session. Welcome, Shreya. Foundation for Environmental Education, founded in the year 1981, the organization has grown to be a world leader within the fields of environmental education and education for sustainable development through its multiple education programs that empower young people and create more environmentally conscious world. May I welcome Mr. Pramod Sharma from CEE. National Institute of Open Schooling, NIOS. The NIOS, it was established in November 1989 as an autonomous organization in pursuance of National Policy on Education 1986 by MHRD. NIOS is providing a number of vocational, life enrichment, and community-oriented courses, besides general and academic courses at secondary and senior secondary level. I welcome Ms. Anshul Kharbanda, Academic Officer, NIOS. Very warm welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining us. So let me quickly just take you through the agenda. I am going to be talking about WWF India's Model Conference of Parties, which is a digital conference that simulates CBD COP, followed by a panel discussion on challenges and opportunities for sustainability education, where I will be so Shreya will be moderating the session for us. Post that, we are going to be presenting various technologies and tools in education and its application for sustainability education. We will be talking about various sustainability programs which are IT enabled, and then the house will open for an open discussion. Moving on to Model Conference of Parties, I would like to give a little background, for this conference. It is a pan-India digital conference for school children, and the whole idea was that we already have a digital portal for environment education, and so we. Through a digital portal, it may not always be possible for you to, directly be in touch with the users or the educators. And this was the reason why WWF India decided to also keep organizing multiple conferences which are more on ground, to be interacting, with the audiences on direct basis. However, when the pandemic hit last year, it wasn't possible to organize an on-ground conference at that point of time, and hence the idea of a digital conference sort of hit us. It was for the first time we were trying to, bite into something so big. It was pan-India, and we were planning to engage all the states and union territories of India into this conference. So let us just kind of go through what all happened, how this was, what was the vision, and how we were driven to kind of organize this conference. So definitely children, or for that matter, anybody, people learn to make good decisions by making decisions, maybe making a couple of errors, and then, learning to make the right decisions, not simply by following instructions that usually the adults do. And this was the entire idea. How do we create a platform that allows children to make some decisions, of course, in a safe environment, simulate this kind of an environment for them, for that they can actually do and learn. And that's what Model Conference of Parties, did for them. So what is Model of Conference of Parties and what we had set out to do? It is basically a 5-day virtual conference. A very rigorous interviews and selection process was followed to identify 72 student delegates from 36 states and union territories of India. We had nominations from each and every state and union territory of India, and we picked up children who were already inclined towards the cause and were also, of course, a little bit technology, were a little tech smart and managed to, have access to internet in various ways. Of course, we wanted to bring as many stakeholders as possible. So partnerships was key to organizing this entire program. We also wanted to, because it was all about advocacy and, decision-making processes at policy level. So it was important for us to bring on board various partners. Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change was on board. National Biodiversity Authority of India was on board, and we had expert speakers from each of these organizations. IUC and CEC was on board. We worked very closely with UNEP, UNDP and Convention of Biological Diversity for this particular conference. Of course, MCOP was simulating CBD COP. COP stands for Conference of Parties, which is basically, coming together of various stakeholders, and they kind of come up with the various action plans that need to be taken at national level. So last year it was launched on May 22nd, which happens to be International Day for Biological Diversity. We realize it's a very apt day to kind of launch this program. Sitting in the comfort of our homes, it was possible for us to organize a conference where we could get speakers from all over the world. We could get speakers from CBD, from joining us from Canada. We could get speakers joining us from China. We could get speakers joining us from Japan and Africa. So that was one big advantage, of organizing a digital conference. The idea was, again, what we had set out to do. We tried to introduce the youth about what role do various conventions play, in this case, particularly CBD, in driving governments and businesses to take action towards building a healthier planet. How the negotiations take place, how people come up with targets, how do they identify various priority areas, and then work towards building various action plans to implement them on the ground back in the countries. It also is basically a platform where children could come and understand how the countries build consensus, because every country will have its own priorities. How to build consensus. There were multiple skill building sessions which were organized as a part of the conference. They also attended sessions that helped them understand, how to negotiate, how to kind of build various problem-solving skills and become a negotiator themselves. So last year, when MCOP 1 took place, they basically pondered upon various national priority areas. And this year, they identified some of the key priority areas through polling, and the ones that were most important for the students, they identified, they kind of created an action plan to implement them on the ground. Of course, a lot of it was not possible because it was high-level policy making. So we also made sure that children commit to taking certain individual actions. You can visit our One Planet Academy portal. I'll share the link a bit later, and read the entire report to see what kind of action commitments made, what kind of action plans they developed on various national priority areas. So how is this an IT-enabled format? There was an online selection process. Various Zoom calls and interviews were organized to identify the right delegates for this conference. There were multiple collaborative tools and brainstorming sessions which were used for various brainstorming sessions that we organized during the session. Breakout rooms, some of you must already be familiar with. Very effectively, the breakout rooms were used for group work. We used many online tools for polling, quizzing, and live interactions to keep the audience engaged. You will all agree that, on a digital platform, it's very easy to lose attention. So how do we keep the participants engaged? That was something that we very successfully managed to achieve during this conference. Certainly, virtual conferencing platforms, there are multiple platforms. We are using one right now, and there are multiple others that can be tried out. And one very interesting thing that we tried out this time was live graphic reporting. So as the children were working in the groups, as the speakers were delivering their talks, everything was kind of recorded graphically by an agency. So that was also again possible because it was a digital platform. So these were some of the fantastic things that we managed to achieve because it was a virtual platform. So definitely technology may have its own limitations, but at the same time it can be a very rewarding experience if a learner is sort of exposed to it. What I want you to do is just experience a little bit with me. What you see right now is one of the collaborative tools called Padlet that we used for our MCOP conference. So what is going to happen is I'm going to share this link. May I request the organizers to share this link with the attendees? And what is going to happen is the screen will appear before you, and you will be able to click on this pink tab, and a pick a location pop-up will appear where you can go and actually type your location and then just publish it when you type it. All right, when you publish, it is going to appear on our screen. So I'll just stop sharing my screen and share another screen where I will see some live tabs. I would request the panelists also to try this out. So all you have to do is go here, type your location and publish it, and it is going to appear on the screen. This is one of the ways in which you find out where all are your participants joining from. So this is one of the interactive tools that we sort of used and we kept engaged. And there are multiple other options which are available, through this. Right, so I have right now published my location on this. If any of the attendees manage to publish, you will be able to experience how various collaborative tools can be used to create an engaging online learning experience. So I am not able to see any other tags. If you can do that, it will, okay, someone has joined from somewhere from Sikkim, fantastic. I am looking for a couple of tags more and then move on to next. Okay, I think so. I mean, you will know how to sort of work around with these kind of tools. So I'll move on further. So next, I would like to invite Shreya from Sashakt Bharat to take the panel discussion forward. And the topic for which you can see on your screens is challenges and opportunities for sustainability education.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. And thank you so much, Neha, for setting us off with that wonderful demonstration. Education really appears as one of the priority strategies for involving a new generation of learners and enacting personal actions that bring about wider societal changes. Institutions around the world are trying to incorporate sustainable development into their programs as a way of contributing to public awareness, empowering individuals to make informed decisions, and ultimately building societies that are based on the values of equity, social justice, and sustainability. As Neha was just telling us, ICT may play a fundamental role here by fostering learning outside of school and creating the conditions for autonomous lifelong learning. The pandemic in many ways has accelerated the pace of this shift to remote or distance learning opportunities, as this is the only option left owing to school closures. The other important aspect to also consider is the affinity of technology that is evident amongst the new age learners. Educators, along with learners, are adapting to the new normal and innovating to use technology to design effective lessons and embed sustainability education into the school curriculum. Now, today with this panel discussion on IT-based solutions, we discuss and review the current status, challenges, and opportunities of IT-based solutions in education that can be applied to embed and integrate sustainability education within our curriculums. I will also request our participants, in case you have questions or comments for our panelists today, please use the Q&A box and please do leave us your questions, which will be addressed towards the end of our session today. I will quickly take a minute and introduce our panelists. I welcome Dr. Pramod Sharma. Sir is the Senior Director of Education with Foundation for Environmental Education. Welcome to the panel, sir. Pleasure to have you here. I welcome Ms. Anshul Kharbanda. Ma'am serves at the National Institute of Open Schooling in India, and she's a practitioner in the ODL system and also has first-hand experience of visiting various open schools and universities across the globe. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the panel. Neha Raghav, of course, with over 2 decades of experience in the education domain, she's been associated with WWF India and has executed multiple programs as a key member of the strategy team. Welcome, Neha. And to set us off, I invite Dr. Pramod Sharma to open this discussion by sharing his thoughts on how really are organizations leveraging new age online tools and technologies to promote climate literacy and sustainability education.
Thank you, Shreya, for this opportunity. As was highlighted, the Foundation for Environmental Education is a member-based organization. We have around 100 members in 78 countries, and we run 5 programs. So in 2018, we thought that it is important if you have to maintain the quality of the 5 programs, which are in 2 sectors. One is for the youth, the Eco Schools program, the Young Reporters for Environment, and the Learning About Forest. Another 2 which works with the tourism, the Green Key as a hotel label and Blue Flag, which certifies beaches. Realize that that if you have to maintain the quality of the program, we will have to do a lot of investment in the training and of our national operators who run the program at the national level, but also the site operators. In the context of school, they will be teachers as such. And that was being done in 2018, but then the pandemic basically made us do the things in a faster way, I would say, and shrink a 5-year plan to a 2-year plan kind of thing. And then we set up an online teaching learning platform called Fee Academy, and it is based on Moodle as such. And it's basically we're putting courses together to support all the stakeholders that work with 5 programs, and we have made it open to any stakeholder outside our program also to be able to join the courses and participate and learn about the issues that are there in the context of sustainability, right from professional development to getting better understanding of any topic. The other experience that I have seen over the last 1.5 years during the pandemic is that we were doing it in a, I would say, once or twice a year kind of format, the webinars. But then during the pandemic, we had to again plan that as a strategy to engage the teachers in the school, and we almost did around 2 to 3 webinars a month to be able to help teachers to get new ideas of working from distance and working from home, and share those ideas as part of our support. And some of the campaigns were organized as part of that, which basically ask teachers to give activities that children can easily do, whether it's waste management at home or observing biodiversity, looking out of window and see what, because if in some places it was complete lockdown, they could only look out of the window and see what difference they are seeing in the past and the now kind of thing. And we also all know that social media was full of stories of biodiversity coming back and cleaner and greener environment as such. And there were images of, I think, from northern part of India. After many decades, people saw Himalaya and all those things. So which basically showed to the people the one in terms of what is possible if we as humans can behave properly. And the second is the power of network, being able to communicate to others and show that and share with others of what change is happening. Earlier, there were stories of high pollution in Delhi, but then there were stories of how things can change so fast from coming from Delhi to the world as such. The tool that we have been using for webinar is called menti.com, and that's an interesting learning that we also had is that we have to make things interactive and get the participants in. And Neha demonstrated Paddle as one of that one of such tools. Just we can't only look at our learners as just from similarly, just we are imitating what we always desist or discourage in a classroom situation of chalk and talk method. But then how do you engage and interact using this media? Otherwise, this is nothing more than replacing a blackboard with a screen as such. One of the programs called Young Reporters basically also tries to use digital media and the modern digital media, which is different social media, blogs, and websites, to encourage children to become voice of environment. And it has a pedagogy of observing, then doing research, mainly online research nowadays, and then finding a solution and putting it in their communities and to the world. And it's become a very popular program happening in 45 countries. And that's one way we found, and it was strengthened during this period when people were forced to go digital, and we had the highest number of participants this year compared to the previous year. And the other thing that we observed was the quality was far better than what we have been getting. And apart from pandemic, that means our resources in form of free academy or webinars were making a difference, and it helped teachers and students learn and improve the quality of submission that they were putting in this program. The change also has happened in the attitude, the way we see it. I remember the webinars pre-COVID, we would hardly have 10 or 15 people, and most of them will be people who have to be there as an obligation because they had some relationship with the organization or they were responsible people for running the program. But then this saw a large number of participants coming in large numbers, and repetitively I could see that more from least or less developed countries compared to countries which were already used to high digital penetration and use of digital technologies in learning. And what I also saw that students develop a lot of skills of self-learning and using media and digital tools for doing their own research and sharing, and develop more expertise on. And my son, who is now 17, I could see the change that happened in 6-7 months of his abilities to use different media. And this has happened and in a very fast way. Otherwise, I would say that it would have taken at least 3 to 4 years to happen, and which happens in 6-7 months. And the challenges that we are facing now is basically the conflict when you have a long-term course kind of thing, and how do you offer. And Anshul will be talking more about it from an iOS perspective, is that how do you keep that engagement going? Because the synchronous engagement is far better than for learning than asynchronous, but then which is not possible when you have different time zones in our context, and different set of audience, which is very different in terms of their needs and abilities. So that's one challenge is there in terms of keeping that engagement going. And then the retention in always open and distance learning and online learning, that's another challenge, is that how do you retain the learner? They do the easy part, but when it comes to submission of assignments and doing some thinking work, you see a high dropout there. And that's what we are seeing, that the courses which are just about seeing videos, reading, and then participating, who is seeing a lot of conversion of participation to generation of certificates, but courses which they require some submission and some thinking activities, the dropout rate is 60 to 70%. And that's another challenge, because as an educator with some experience, I can say that engagement and or learning happens with deeper engagement, and that happens with thinking and seeing original production of some content by the learner, not responding to the questions that we have put on the platform, which are mostly close-ended question, which is then just clicking a button as such, not writing something which is their own creation. And so the question of deeper learning is coming up strongly in the last 18 months of experience that we have had. And the other the, the challenge that we are now seeing as a global network when we are using the digital means is the issue of equity. And sitting in Denmark and the developed part of the world, and India, fortunately, also has both the developed and developing part kind of, and you can see it more closely, is that we are seeing it from a perspective where where the access to technology and the means to be able to participate in digital means of learning is easier and is possible. And but then when you look at from a larger part of the world where the larger population is there, we are seeing a big gap. And and my worry is that because this is cheaper, easier to do, and gives a sense of that we are delivering something in a short term, 2 to 3 years, we might miss out a larger population of teachers and students who might not be able to have this have access to decreasing basically availability of learning opportunities, because we are shifting our resources from face to face to this, which in definition is better, but then there are realities of the world that we need to take care of and understand before we completely move to digital means of teaching and learning. The other thing which I think with the younger children, what I'm also observing is the use of apps. And we tried one app in April for a Global Action Days campaign for a period of 21 days. As an educator and with experience in environmental education, that was a very ambitious campaign, because I know it's difficult to even engage people for 3 days or 4 days in any activity which is continuous. And we were able to get 9,000 children across the world who continued and participated in those 21 days. And that happened because of the sense of community that app provided, because they were in the one place and they were able to say. And so this social part is also an important aspect when we are getting into this online teaching and learning and digital learning as such. And how do we keep that social part also alive, and which also goes with that synchronous and asynchronous, because when you do a synchronous teaching learning, and the facilitator or the teacher or the course coordinator is able to have an engagement in real time with see higher conversion rate of or higher participation compared to the aspect where this social part is missing and the learner is basically left alone on his her own. So mostly what we are also now looking forward are trying to see that there should be an online and offline combination of those activities, and we should be able to provide opportunities for learner to be able to engage with co-learners in a different platform. But then the other aspect from a global organization is the time zone and things like that. So we'll be happy to answer any questions that might be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. I think a very important point that you're making there about, fostering this sense of community amongst learners and making sure that, the interventions are interactive, they are feedback based, and then they are also experiential. And I think this is a very good point to also welcome Anshul, Ms. Anshul Kharbanda, and ask her that what has been the competitive advantage of shifting education online, and what are the opportunities that she can witness as an educator that can be envisaged from strengthening distance, digital, and self-learning interventions. Ma'am, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Shreya. Greetings to everyone, especially my co-panelists, Neha and Pramod. When we talk of technology for sustainability, Technology is very dynamic. We all know it's fast changing, and we have new technologies coming up every day, be it any field, and same follows for education also. So hence, when we talk of technology for sustainability in education, the technology that is used has to be adapted as per the needs of the varied groups of learners. But as per my experience with NIOS, I found that technology has to be the appropriate technology and not the cutting edge or the high end technology. Besides this, multiple delivery channels need to be adopted, because when we talk of addressing a range of learners in a diverse country like India, it's always advisable to reach through multiple channels, as we here at NIOS do use multiple channels of delivery, such as the Swayam MOOC platform, the virtual open schooling platform, YouTube, Diksha, the government platform, the live programs on PM eVidya TV channels, the Mukt Vidyavani, that is our radio program, and also the community radio programs. Other than this, all resources are available on the NIOS website also in a downloadable format. So what the world recently observed during the pandemic, a shift towards the digital and online platforms, we have been doing it for years now. Recently, we see that elementary and secondary schools have started using the virtual learning platforms to increase the academic performance of students. We have been doing it for years, last 30 years for now. If we talk of opportunity for educators, and at NIOS to be specific, we have about 5 lakh enrollments every year and a cumulative enrollment of about 3 million. And strengthening digital and distance interventions make it possible to address the diverse learning needs of all students with the digital curriculum. It also provides a personalized learning to meet the needs of all students. And it also equips the administrators, the teachers, and the students with real-time progress and performance to make informed decisions to track their progress. Further, as for ODL institutions, it is economical on the time of teaching of staff, the cost of instruction by delivering various courses to large number of students. It also facilitates the presentation of online learning by instructors without web authoring experience. It provides instructions to students in a flexible manner with varying time and location constraints, and also a manner which is familiar to the current web-oriented generation of our students. The platforms, the virtual platforms, are also supposed to support many 21st century skills, such as the cultural and global awareness, access to wide network of people and information, self-direction so that they work at their own pace, ICT literacy, so that they use technology to obtain and present information, and also problem solving skills. And they often participate in group thinking and discussion and time management and meet deadlines also. So both supporters and critics of virtual learning environments recognize the importance of developing such skills, including creativity, communication, knowledge, application. However, there is still a lot of controversy whether or not the virtual learning environments are practical for both teachers as well as students. So besides, there are some challenges too in terms of accessibility and learner engagement. So the rapid shift to distance learning has also highlighted a persistent digital device in terms of connectivity, infrastructure, ability to engage with technology also. And because of this sudden transition to online mode, there has been a clear disparity in the preparedness for the digital education due to a divide in digital skills and literacy that both the students and educators have experienced. Digital technology has impacted the content transaction in the classrooms. With increased use of technology over the last decade, educators are moving from traditional forms of teaching to include new models of learning with digital competency in mind, and as these promote global connectivity too. So, but there has also been a lack of digital infrastructure for both teachers and students, and a disparity in internet connection and access to devices, what we have observed. Increased awareness of importance of literacy and digital skills for human-centered recovery and possible ways to make policies, measures, and interventions for youth and adult literacy to make it better are more inclusive to counter the digital divide. Now, if we also look at some of the facts and figures, what I saw from the reports, there are about 6 lakh villages in India. Why I say all this is because NIOS is a national level organization with learners throughout the India and more of it in the remote parts of the country. So there are about 6 lakh villages in India, out of which 25,000 villages do not have mobile or internet connectivity. And according to the Internet and Mobile Association of India report, 33% women have access to internet as compared to 67% men. So the annual status of education report also says only 1/3 of India's school children are pursuing online education. And further, only 32% of this are doing live online classes, showing how the digital divide is still wide in the school sector. And also, as per the ASA report by Pratham, only 11% of students enrolled in schools were using online classes, while 21% were using videos or recorded classes. So NEP 2020, now we recently got, it's now 1 year. So we got a new education policy 2020, and which taking cognizance of the present scenario of education in India, it seeks to encourage leveraging digital technology for learning, recommends new autonomous body, National Education Technology Forum, that will standardize the content and pedagogy while promoting evolving technologies for digital learning. So as NEP also recommends the use of television, radio, community radio for broadcast of educational programs, including programs in regional languages to bridge the digital divide. We have already been doing this for years now, and but it's a little bit still a topic for debate if such initiatives are providing the same quality of education to students who do not have access to smartphones or internet. So because we recently launched our platform, the virtual open schooling platform also, which was very recently launched by the Education Minister of India, Dharmendra Pradhanji, on 5th of August. And he said that that is to provide personalized learning environment to the students. So he has also envisaged that 17 crore children would be joining on the platform. So let's see how we go with it. So, but that is to provide a kind of virtual platform along with virtual labs for the students, so that whatever they are studying, they can parallelly do the experiments, and maybe they cannot move out of their homes, because we all have known, we have seen it at our homes also, theory lessons have been imparted through online lessons, online classes. But when we talk of practicals, they have not been able to get that experience. So with that in mind, this has been launched, and it is to give some kind of simulation using HoloLens and the new emerging technology to give learners that experience of virtual classes. And also we have several initiatives that have been taken for the in the field of sign language. And today from UNESCO Paris, we are getting UNESCO Literacy Prize also for the same, just after this conference. So that is just to let know that NIOS has already been doing a lot in this field, and that is also because of reaching to those learners through the digital platform. We have also seen our experience during the pandemic that exams couldn't be conducted for class 10th and 12th also. So the platform would also have embedded online examinations where the learners can appear for the exam, and they can ask questions, and there will be multiple modes. It's not that they can just chat. They can also record a video and send a question in form of a video. They can type. They can type in different languages. The text recognition will be there, so that it is translated into different languages. So we are trying to involve such type of technology so as to give personalized attention and to retain the learners. As Pramod also mentioned, that it's very difficult to retain the learners. We get the learners, but then to hold the learners for long, that is a little difficult thing. So this is what I wanted to share for now.
Thank you, ma'am. I think you're absolutely right when you say that NIOS, in that sense, has carved a niche for itself by meeting learners where they are and really coming up with multiple interventions and channels through which we can engage learners across the country. I will invite comments from Neha now. I think both of our panelists have flagged a lot of concerns when it comes to leading sustainability education programs, but Neha, what are the certain challenges that you can identify in terms of accessibility, pedagogical design, and learner engagement? And moreover, what kind of support is required to strengthen the digital infrastructure as such, and also to strengthen the teacher capacity to educate learners about environment and sustainability?
Thank you for your question, Shreya. I think so. A lot has already been said by Dr. Pramod and Anshul. They have already talked about a lot of challenges. I would like to reiterate a few, and maybe some of the solutions that I can think of, I'd like to share over here. When it comes to IT-based solutions for education, I feel that in the current scenario, every challenge is an opportunity, and every opportunity you see becomes a new challenge for you, right? Because if you say a huge digital divide, there is something that needs to be done about it. We have to come up with technology which runs on low bandwidth. We have to come up with, and it's already happening because we don't seem to have any other choice at this point of time. When it comes to digital infrastructure, I know that the government itself has a very strong inclination towards building this infrastructure. They are working towards, and it's a matter of time when we may not be able to reach the entire population, but definitely this circle is going to grow, and we will have with organizations like NIOS and Diksha and many other who are constantly striving to build this infrastructure to kind of make sure that more and more learners are connected to these digital platforms. I think so we will soon be able to achieve a few milestones from here. One thing I'd really like to sort of, really harp upon is the teacher capacity. So teachers, when I say teacher capacity, is not just in terms of the IT skills, because that seems to be a very new thing, for teachers, but they have really, very fast adapted to it. But the other concern is their understanding of the issues pertaining to environment and sustainability. That's a big one. When it comes to sustainability education, even if a teacher has picked up an IT skill, they have already adapted to various modes of online learning. But what is key here is whether they have a great understanding of issues with respect to environment and sustainability. And even if they do have a little understanding of it, are they equipped to embed that in their classrooms? That's a very key issue that I see, because everything else, technology is so fast evolving, it is so user friendly that in no time we adapt to it and we pick up. The key issue is whether we are able to address the issues of sustainability and whether we can achieve the goals of sustainability or not. Definitely something that Anshul and Dr. Pramod, they have both sort of mentioned, that it's very important to have the right pedagogy for immersive learning, how to, through a digital medium in particular. That's where I'm coming from when I said that the digital portal that we developed, the tech agency which was developing, they did not believe in the program, because they felt that without, how can you do environment education, which is supposed to be so on ground, practical, hands-on kind of a thing, through a virtual medium? And that was the point where we decided that even though this is going to be a repository of various digital resources, it's very important to constantly meet the educators. And that's exactly what we tried to do when we organized a whole lot of workshops and conferences and training sessions for the teachers. Of course, last year when pandemic hit, even that was not possible. Face-to-face kind of completely was ruled out as a possibility, and that's how we kind of started to meet our teachers virtually. I think so a lot of hit and trial I think so everyone will agree that a lot of hit and trial was happening. In the beginning of the lockdown, people did not know what to do and how to go about it. What is an ideal duration of a digital session? 1 hour, 2 hour. We always wanted to do more, but we realized that the attention span is so low. Whether it is teachers or learner or children or whosoever it is, the attention span is so low that we may not be able to hold our audience for long. So, and we have to design very engaging sessions. And that was a huge challenge. We saw digital as an opportunity, but that poses new challenges before us. The other very big thing that I want to bring to light is the security issue. When it comes to children, cyber security is key. So the educators will have to be very mindful. They should be trained ideally on how to deal with cybersecurity issues when it comes to IT-enabled solutions for education, right? So that should be something to be really addressed. Another very big challenge that I see, and we have kind of faced it, lack of literacy skills among children, in particularly in the rural parts of India, where the literacy skills are so low that children are not able to even read what is out there, and there is no way that you can assess and evaluate whether the learning is actually taking place or not. That also kind of creates opportunities for technology in education. If a child is not able to read, IT solutions can actually help us create interventions where children can listen to the audio and various ways in which, you can engage a learner, and, learning can still take place even if the literacy levels are considerably low. So I see, again, when I said in the beginning that challenges are opportunities, and every opportunity a new challenge, that's exactly what I meant when I'm saying this. Regarding opportunities, if I am to talk about it, since digital is the only option, left with us. Even the tech agencies are really fast evolving, and they're coming up with solutions to address the gaps which have been there. You would have seen that, Zoom has come up with better security policies. They have come up with better tools. They have come up with, and there are multiple tools which are available to kind of use, which are more and more. One tool is better than the other. So all we need to do is kind of, find out what are these tools that work the best for us. There's Google Classroom. There are tons of things that can be tried out. Right. The only thing is that we may not have enough time for trial and testing. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to teacher capacity, I think so these are some of the things that really need to be addressed. The other thing is, and I think so Anshul has also said that, and so did Shreya, when she was introducing us, that children have a natural affinity to the digital medium. So even if they will not pick up a book, but they will definitely pick up a phone, and a little notification and a little nudge, from a teacher or a parent can actually, push the child into learning through digital medium. Of course, there are a lot of distractions that needs to be controlled. With every pros, there is a cons here. So that is something that needs to be sort of really addressed when it comes to opportunities. And the other thing is, there are actually multiple technology-based programs run by multiple organizations. Dr. Pramod just mentioned. Anshul has kind of talked about, even I have been talking about, apart from our 3 organizations, I'm sure there are tons of other organizations which have digital resources available, which are very child friendly, very well done resources. But the task at hand is that an educator needs to be equipped to organize all of that information, pick up the relevant stuff, plan it for her classroom, and then deliver it. Okay, we cannot expect a teacher to run from one portal to another, one website to another, and then keep looking for stuff. A teacher may not have that kind of luxury of time. So it's very important that all these resources are organized, and which is why as an organization, we believe that collaboration is the key over here. Okay, we create more and more products. The more and more options a teacher has access to, more confused she will end up to be. right? So that's where I really, urge, or I really request the organizations working in this domain to sort of come together and create a journey for an educator who is keen on sustainability education over there. These are some of the opportunities, I think. So there are tons of opportunities. The only thing is, as an educator, I am confused. What should I pick up for my children, and what will work the best in my classroom? So that's what my submission is to everyone, that come together and collaborate, and I think so a lot is possible through that.
Right, absolutely. Very interesting observations there. I think you made a very fundamental point about how disruption is forcing us to innovate and also perhaps rethink the way we had been offering sustainability education programs. But just to pick up on your point about collaboration being the key, I think I will invite Dr. Sharma to also talk about how partner organizations can sort of collaborate and come together and offer ecosystem support to increase the scale and scope of the programs that we are offering.
Thank you, Shreya. I think one important point here is that what Neha ended with is that the focus has to be on curation, not on creation. A lot of content is already available, already there, and as an educator, the idea is that we have to have a clarity on what learning need to happen, and then how do we create that experience to get that learning done. So that's what we are also doing at the FEE head office, is that we are looking around, finding the right partners who already have those resources, and then platforms like Moodle make it very easy to be able to bring in those resources without infringing on any copyright or any other aspects that are there, and that makes it easy for a person who is trying to put together a learning experience, but then also basically pick the best that is there around the world, and that's also saving resources. I think that's also an important reality that we all work in, is that creating of resources takes a lot of time, money, and also a lot of experience. And that has been one of the challenge earlier also, is that 80 to 90% of the resources just go into development, but not on dissemination, and then hardly 10 or 15% is left on dissemination. And here, this is a time, an opportunity where we can pick up what already has been produced by the best of the organizations, and then put together that as a learning experience. But there is a caution here, is a lot of bad material, unscientific material, especially in sustainability education, climate change, and things like that is there available all around. And you can get easily fooled with the argument, because that also has been done by best of the brains in the world who have their agenda around it. And we need to be cautious about that part also, and see that how do we validate the quality of those content from the scientific point of view, and then create that pedagogical experience. So there are two different aspects here on that front. The other caution that I will also like to do is that it may give us a sense that we have been able to deliver. But I think we have to sit back and reflect, because ultimately environmental education is all about action. Whether we've been able to influence behavior, knowledge, and research again and again and showing that knowledge doesn't have a good correlation with behaviors, only attitude has. And attitude and behavior change requires engagement, and we might develop affinity towards animals because of watching more National Geographic, but whether we will do something to conserve them, that's another ball game. And so we need to keep that focus on what the end goal is, and should not get lost in the means that we have as of now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, sir, for your closing comments. Do we have any questions from the audience? I don't see any questions as of yet. So Neha, do you want to take over and lead us further into the session? We have a couple of minutes left.
Yeah, we have about a minute left. As per by my watch, its time is up. But I would really like to thank each one of you for for this wonderful session. I think so great learning, and I think so we should connect offline as well to see that how we can kind of come together, collaborate, and make sure. And one thing I really sort of appreciate that Dr. Pramod Sharma mentioned, which was we should not be wasting more resources by replicating things. We should see how what is existing can be used and first be taken across. I think so that's a big learning that even we had. Last year we tried out multiple things, but we realized that even though the resources there was a lot invested in creating those resources, the consumption was really low for all the good bad reasons. So I think so that's one thing that we should all sort of work towards, certainly collaboration. And I would once again, if there are any school heads or principals or teachers joining us, do talk about security issues, because when it comes to IT, it is a big one to kind of make sure that our children are safe while they are on various digital platforms or attending any webinar sessions. So that's all I have to say, and from my end, that is it. I think so we will have to join the plenary now. Yeah.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Shreya.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.